So let's talk about modeling the data today. Okay, so that's primarily what we are going to talk about. What is modeling of data? And modeling of data is, is very, very important. It's as important or more important, in fact, more important than how your visualizations work. So you need to have a very strong data model at the back end, which is, a mix of tables that are connected in the best way possible. So if you look at the statement that's written here, it talks about an optimal data structure with as few number of tables and columns, thereby reducing the complexity. So, you do not have a lot of complex, if you had to use only 3 tables, use only 3 tables. If you have to use, if there are 5 to 10 tables, how do people usually create data models out of that? So sometimes there are 10 to 15 tables and then another 10 to 15 tables this side. How do people create? They join all the tables into a single, probably entity, into a single table, which is like a reporting view, and then fetch from that reporting view. It becomes very, very effective, or it becomes very, very efficient. Not effective, it's efficient. Why is it efficient? Because you are querying only that one table, which is the end result of all the joins of the other tables, right? That's where data modeling is very important. If you look at that icon that I've used here, that circle at the center is one table, and all the other 5 circles are smaller tables. And this is how you would, it's called star schema. We will talk a bit more about this later. But star schema, if you have heard about the word schema, I spoke about schema yesterday, SCHEMA. Star schema is a data model where you have a central table at the a fact table at the center, and you have a lot of dimension or lookup tables surrounding it. Okay, there's also something called as snowflake schema. Okay, snowflake. You can probably read a bit more about that, and that's a topic for another day. But that's about data models very quickly. And Power BI enables you to model your data, and there are some modeling capabilities which we are going to go through and cover through. Thank you. All right. So if you can see my Power BI screen, this is the startup screen where it shows something like this, right? I mean, what's new, forums, Power BI blog, tutorials, and a lot of videos also, right? There's an option where it show the screen on startup. If I disable this option, it won't show up again. But what this has is, all of the communities, the forums where, questions are discussed. There's also blogs where there is up to date. What is the latest features in Power BI? All of that you can, capture here. And there are also tutorials or self-help videos. You're also able to correctly connect to data directly from here. And also, like I think one of you mentioned earlier, the recent files you should be able to see here, in case you're not able to find your file. Okay, close. So I'm on the screen now, and what we are going to do today is the next exercise. So let me quickly open up that exercise sheet. Okay, so I'm going to load a few. I just loaded sales, and it will show me in a while. Just wait for it to come up. There we go. And next step I need to do is, all of you are familiar with this. I click on the sheet, select the sheet. I can see, the different data over here. There's a lot of beauty and personal care products, other products. But the preview will only show the first few rows. Okay. Not sure if it's 100 rows or whatever, but it only shows the first few rows because of the size limits. But you get a sense of how your data looks like. Okay. Now this data looks pretty clean, right? I mean, compared to the multi-level data that we loaded yesterday, this one seems to be like, every dimension is in a column, every metric is in a column. It is in a good data structure. So I don't need to do a lot of cleaning. I'm going to click directly on load and not on transform. Okay. Again, don't go back and do this till I ask you to do that. Please pay attention here, and I will load the rest of the data files. So I just loaded sales, which is taking some time to load. And I'll wait for this to, okay. So we just loaded all the sheets. Now I'm going to go to the model view in Power BI. Okay, a lot of people are done now, which is good. So this is the model view which we're talking about. So report view, this is a data view, and this is the model view. You can see how the icon is, right? There's one table linked to it, there's another table linked to it, so on and so forth. Okay. Now, if I go to the model field, I'm going to minimize these screens and just make this completely visible. This is similar to how you have your report, report view, where you can add multiple model views. So I can see that there's already some kind of connection between location data and sales data, which is like a line in here. Okay, please come back to my screen. Don't go and look at your screens. You will find the same. But please look at the Zoom screen for now, because you'll miss any other instructions that I'm sharing. So if I hover over this line over here, what I am able to quickly see is that it highlights a couple of columns in both of the tables. Okay. Now let's before we do that, let's quickly look at the tables or the data view. This is the row level view. If you remember one of the questions from yesterday's quiz, this was about that this view, which view shows the row level data, and that's this data view. Okay. Now in the data view, and I quickly look at these three tables, let's understand what types of tables these are. So sales data has a lot of metrics. If you see all of these columns, these are metrics. Shipped units, shipped revenue, ordered units, ordered revenue, traffic, number of reviews, and all of that. Okay. By the way, quick question: week number. Week number is a metric or a check. If you remember, when I spoke about fields yesterday, I spoke about fields, and I told you that fields in Power BI include both metrics and dimensions. And metrics are all of those numerical or quantifiable values or fields which can be aggregated, which can be, you can take a sum of, you can take an average of. But would you ever take an average of week number or a sum of week number? Just ask that question when you see a number and you're confused whether it's a metric or a dimension. Will you ever take a sum or average of that metric or that? You're also right. Exactly the same. You won't take a sum, average, or percentage. Okay. So that's about this table. So this table is mostly a fact table. Okay. Fact is something very similar to metric. So just for now, for the purpose of this discussion, fact is also metric. Okay, so that's a terminology that you use in data modeling. So this is a fact table, FACT, fact table, which is just a metric table. Okay, but the other two are primarily dimension tables, because these are all, like category C1, category 1, subcategory 1, B1, P1, all of that. Okay. So that's how this is categorized. So all of this is dimension data. You wouldn't take a sum or average or anything of any of these. This is just talking about, for example, what is this data? This is like product ID, brand is Puma, sub brand is this, category is shoes, something like that. It's like that kind of product data. And there's location data, which is also a dimension table, which is having, store ID. Okay, tell me, store ID is a metric or a dimension? In the chat, store ID is a metric or a dimension? Seetal, that's not always true, by the way, that dimensions are always at the right. Usually metrics are at the right, but it's always dependent on how your Excel is. So in your Excel, if it's in one order, it will always show in that order. Yeah, all of you are saying dimension, right? Nobody's saying metric, which is good. So you have understood the concept very clearly, even though it looks like a number and it's deceiving and it's probably making you think that it's a metric. It's not, it's a dimension. You wouldn't take a sum of store IDs. How weird would it look if your dashboard has something like, total store ID value? Would anybody need that data? No.